I want to flip the switch a little bit and talk about ARA. I know you were one of the co-founders of ARA. Why? Because from my perspective, it's a thankless job, and not only is it a thankless job, you put in a lot of hours, and on top of it, there's no money to be made.
Spend a lot of money too.
You spend a lot of money. Right now,
long hours, hard work, and no pay. I'm in.
right now we're in, there was Rally America, and then obviously that stopped. And what made you kind of say, hey guys, we should start our own thing? Let's start ARA. How did that happen?
Well, that's another long story. You sure you got time for this?
The mic is yours.
A lot of people don't know the whole story. Don't really need to know the whole story. It's been long enough now, so they probably should. The biggest thing, me as an organizer, I was also during this, somewhere between these photos, I was also organizing the New England Forest Rally. And my mentor, Ted Goddard, was the manager, and it was him and Buffum for years. And then Buffum got out, and then I sort of tried to slide in, but you can't slide into Buffum's shoes. He's too good, you know. But as an organizer, I started realizing that, Rally America would roll in at the last minute and make all these demands and didn't really care what the organizer thought. And they would make us sign these contracts saying that, we have to provide all these things. And it was really a one-sided deal. And I wasn't happy with that. I like the peasants. I'm kind of a peasant, and I like helping them. And so I wanted to see how we could do it better. And the club system in Europe, I got exposed to that in Finland and other places. And I thought, well, that's what we really need is a stepping ladder and to have a club system so we could have workers they could be rewarded for their skills. They could be advanced. I remember there are stage captains that were captains for 20 years, and their assistant captain never got to move up. It's not how you do it in business. You can't stay the top guy. You got to keep leading. Even the military training taught me you got to keep moving, train your replacement. You're constantly evolving. That didn't happen, and I thought with the club system would help that. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that, improve organization generally. And we go to these every year. The organizers would go to an event where we would meet with Rally America, and then we would try to do best practice. We would discuss what we were doing and what worked in New England might not have worked in Missouri and Washington, and some of those meetings were very, very helpful for most of us. And I thought that's what we need is really a good way for the organizers to coordinate and talk and work together, because we're all kind of like in our own little tube, we're not really working together.
What I found is that even though each rally operates under an umbrella, it's all quite different, and they're all quite siloed in their own ways.
Yeah,
and you noticed that too.
Yeah, as an organizer, I saw it, and my organizational skills aren't. I'm not a super good guy at it, but running the rally school and other businesses, I realize you can't do that. They fail. Businesses fail because of that reason. Mm-hmm. You've got people that they got their little fiefdom and they want to protect it, and there's all these things. So I wanted to come up with a better system. And then when I talked to the Rally America guys, they had their own little program. And when Doug Haver took over Rally America, and he spent a lot of money on it, and I think it was good in many ways, because SCCA said we've had enough. Yeah. So he saved it. Yep. Before him...
And he spent his own money.
Yes, a lot of it. So I thought, well, if we had a better system and we could work well with the organizer, with the national sanctioning body, and they could help coordinate some of this, we could share best practice. And then when I realized that Rally America was not on that same page. So... I kind of met with a lot of resistance at first about what things got to be done to change. And that's when I did learn a lot about, it's just a hobby, it's not going anywhere. A lot of the older guys thought that. And I thought, well, yeah, you're probably right. It is just a hobby. And the sport isn't maybe ever going to be as big as NASCAR. And if you tried to make it that big, it would screw it up.
But I think if you have that mentality that it's we're fine where we are, it's never going to grow. There's not even a potential.
Right.
It's just going to be stagnant the whole
Right.
time.
And I was very frustrated with that. And biggest thing is I wanted to get the sponsor. I wanted to see the organizers of the events get some sponsorship dollars, and show the value that this event had. And it wasn't easy to do because the way Rally America's contracts read, they had a handle on. They had control. When you wanted to get a sponsor, you had to call them first, give them the phone number of the sponsor, tell them who it was, and they'll take care of it.
Yeah.
And then it's the last you ever heard of.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Even for folks with media.
Oh, the media badges.
Yeah,
Oh, my
they
goodness.
had
I
to-
tried to get my sponsor to go get a media thing, and they wanted $3,000 for a media vest.
Yeah.
So this just went on and on and on. And like I said, I don't do well like that. So I said to my buddy Martin Hedlund, Martin, what can we do about this? What can we do it like the Canadians do it?
Yeah.
What was you going to say?
No, I was going to say, I mean, did you start ARA when you knew Rally America was just about to end, or were you doing this?
Yeah, because I realized, and I was told, that the owner wanted to use it as a write-off for a business.
Yeah.
And as soon as he got what he needed, he was going to dump it. The sport was going down the tube. But I didn't want everybody to know that. So talking to Martin about Canadians, how they do it and how the Europeans do it, and let's try to model this like the rest of the world, even though we can't exactly do that. I wanted to use some of their best practice methods. And so Martin had a better handle on it, I think, than many others. And plus, Martin is kind of like me. He likes the peasants, so he'll save them. So we also needed somebody that was good at, doing all the paperwork and everything. And so my partner, Chris Sear, who's still kind of new at the school, and so he was new enough to, maybe he was a little naive to what it was going to take. And there was some big, scary players here. And they all had power, the ones that...
Scary players as in what?
Well, how is it managed? It's a long story, but there are people that are pulling the strings, that have been pulling the strings for a very long time, that are still pulling the strings.
I know what you mean.
And they're like unelected officials.
I know what you mean.
Right. So they didn't like the idea of talking like this because they had power. They can help influence the rules. They could influence sponsors. They could influence everything and have been. So they didn't want to hear what we had to say. So that was it was very difficult to build this and get people on board. But I had a number. One of the first, when I started working on this, I had the number one sponsor call me up and say, I hear you're doing something, and I don't know what it is, but I want in. And then I started getting the organizers saying, I heard you're doing something. I don't know what it is, but I want in. And
Snowball effect.
All so frustrated with the way it was.
Yeah.
They just wanted something different.
Yeah.
And because they could tell the end was coming. And so that encouraged me. And so we started having meetings, and we started putting it together. And there was a lot of people involved, a lot of organizers from almost all the events. And one of the early, Doug Shepard was one of the guys that we would talk on a regular basis, And at at an organizer meeting with all the organizers in Rally America, we'd come direct. This is wrong, and it's like, that's the way it is. You're going to sign it? And I'm like, Doug, this can't continue on. And so I had Doug Shepard's opinions early on. And Doug is a tough one because he sits around and he tries to see how it's going, and he kind of plays the middle a little bit, more than I would. And that works for him. And so while we were getting closer and closer and we were having meetings, the meetings were kind of painfully slow. It's like,
To get the ball rolling?
Once the ball was rolling, we had the meetings and everything, you got everybody's opinion, and it just takes time. And that's why people don't like being ruled by committees, So we lost a few because of the painful, slow process, but I knew it was empowering the organizers. They felt, wow, we can make these changes and we can do this. And so early on, the ARA didn't require you to pay them for, all the things that we just talked about with organizing rallies. It just the costs. Everybody, New England has massive road fees. Other organizers have, and we also have hotel fees, and there's so many different costs for everybody different. So we tried finding different ways to resolve each one of these issues. And I think it did work. And the other thing was the competition committee would be the one deciding on rules. Well, that didn't go over very well because some of the guys that have been deciding the rules didn't like it because they had to ask somebody something. And at the time, Subaru was like a week ahead of everybody else, and everybody was getting frustrated because the way they were just making these decisions, they didn't include everybody. So that's kind of how it started. There's a lot more to it, and some I don't remember everything, but when it got most of the organizers that I thought were in, that's when we had to try it. And then Rally America stayed with it. We had a couple more negotiations. It was very difficult. But I just stood my ground. I'm a stubborn Irishman, and I said, no, it ain't going to happen. This is what we're going to do. And eventually we went over, and I think it was the right thing to do because I'm pretty sure the sport wouldn't be running now if we didn't.
I agree. ARA, I mean, you've obviously since moved on. I mean, did you sell it for $1 or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My thing was I wanted, same thing, develop it. I wanted to build it, but I didn't necessarily want to see it grow. I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
So after a while, we had the meeting, the annual meeting, and it was time to vote for officers. And then I had heard that Kevin Miller, the
From
guy, USAC guy, we'd been talking to him and all along, but I'd heard that he would consider being nominated. And I'm thinking, that's it. That's the guy who does all the paperwork, has the sponsorship dollars, already owns the oldest sanctioning body. I'm like, there it is. That's who I want to own this. Because I was already like 250 in, and that's a lot for a small business.
Yeah.
Nothing compared to what Doug Haber put in. But so I told the committee, I said, listen, I think this guy will do a better job than I would. I started it, but I think he'll do a better job from here on. So if you, it's like, I find somebody to do a better job, I get out and let them do it. So I made sure they didn't feel bad about shipping me down the road. And I also knew that him and Doug were buddies. Doug Shepard.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Doug Shepard and Kevin were buddies, and I wanted Doug on board, even though I knew Doug would do it as differently than I would. But so they voted me out, and Doug and Kevin got to be the president, and then we made a bunch of changes before that. But overall, that was what I think made the big transitional change, and for me, I was kind of worn out. It was very difficult to negotiate with some of these people that just wanted their own way, and that's the only way it was.
Yeah.